Hey everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit. I don't have much voice left, but I want to paint this up. This is I'm making a modular, basically like townhousey looking storefront kind of situation. And here's another piece I made for that, so they're going to kind of, sit side by side, and I can use them as a backdrop in front of where I sit to create a more, entranced set for the party. So I'm going to start by doing my wood stuff. And I'm just using a piece of junk cardboard I have. One thing I definitely noticed is I should have left some bigger gaps in between my windows and stuff. Made them a little smaller maybe. So it'd be easier to paint down in this and give it some detail, but that's okay. We'll make it work. So I'm going to do the wood first and then come back and do the stone, I think is my plan. If I have much of a plan. Oops. Hit my camera. Well, it's just my phone. I ate at the worst Chick-fil-A on earth today. I also randomly got cut in the mall, and I'm not sure how. Got a drag cut, rip on my arm. And I'm not easy to, I don't cut easy unless, it's like a knife or something, you know what I mean? I don't scrape myself on stuff. I get cuts often. So it was kind of like, what the hell? She got it we were at the food court, and she got Chinese food, and I went and got Chick-fil-A. And when I was coming back to sit down, there was this blood dripping down my arm all randomly. And I'm not even on blood thinners anymore. Okay, so we got all the browned up. Oh, I should have done the doors. Hold on. Let me get my brush back. We'll do the doors in brown too while we're here. I didn't show that in the video. I did it after the fact when I was painting this black with Mod Podge. I just added some little of those tiny gem things from those gem bead paintings my wife and mom do to make those door straps look a little more attractive. So it's nothing too major, but I didn't show them in the video, and I'm sorry for that. I didn't think about it until after the fact. Let's set that off to the side. So if you're wondering why it looks like there's some wood grain texture, what I did when I painted the Mod Podge on here with black is I used a really crappy brush and I tried to follow the direction of the wood grain, or how I thought the wood grain would go, and it actually provided quite a bit of. And then coming back and you notice that when I painted the wood again, I used the same kind of technique. I'm going to lighten that wood up some. Where's that little brush at? I didn't put shit away, and that creates problems. And I lost my little brush. Here, we'll use this one. Starting to look a little more woody. A little bit more woody. I want to lighten that up a little bit more. So I'm going to mix a little bit of this beige in with that brown that I have there. And that's too much. Somebody gets some of that dark brown and mix it in. Get some of that dark brown and mix it in. Oh, it's way too light. Okay. Let's see if I can't make this work. So I'm going to have to take a lot of that off the brush. I'm going to try it on the side here. We don't want to go out of control with that. Okay, that's going to work. Now let's get a small brush and go back and do all our stone. Let me sneeze here. Shit. All right. We're going to use my favorite color on earth for this. Pavement. I'm using a damp brush. Do, 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 do. Let me blow my nose. Alright, there we go. Nose blowed. Okay. Close enough for government work. I am going to take a little bit of this and squirt it on here. I'm going to use it to do my roof. But I'm going to mix it with a dark blue. Try to make a hideous kind of bluish gray mix. I want to ask you guys a question. So, in my opinion, and from what I learned, the stick is the most versatile weapon in history. It started out as a stick we picked up on the ground. It went through evolutions as a spear, as a quarterstaff, as a club, as maces, flanged maces. Yeah, flanged maces, booyah. Basically, the stick ends up as, I guess in modern time you would call it the extending baton, or ASP. But I've always believed and learned that the stick was the most versatile and powerful weapon in history. Yeah, guns have more potential for killing. Grenades can do a lot of damage at once. Bombs and missiles can do big things. But as far as the longest lasting and most versatile weapon in history, something that's existed since the beginning of using tools until modern day still it exists in combat, the stick. And one of the things I learned about the evolution of the stick is that the flanged mace was actually designed so that peasants, without any formal training, could fight knights in armor. That's what I was taught. I actually took a class on the evolution of weapons and was taught that. Well, I had a gentleman tell me the other day at a Viking festival that wasn't true and that the rondel was the only weapon that you could really kill a knight with. Well, the rondel is like a three-sided piercing dagger, right? Well, it's more like a pike, a handheld pike than a dagger. So this dude's telling me this, and he's serious, too. He's like, you're wrong. The flanged mace cannot fight a knight. Dude, please. It's been bothering me ever since. So the next step is I'm going to get a medium gray. And I'm going to do a little bit of work around them bricks. And to do that, I'm just going to use that small brush that I was using to do the wood. Actually, I'm going to use the same small brush I used to do the, what do you call it? Okay. And I'm going to wipe a lot of that out. I'm going to drag it along here roughly. And try to make my brickwork interesting. I'm not trying to make this an all-day task. Again, I'm trying to make it interesting. I'm not trying to make it the focal point. So anyways, in the comments, if y'all could give me your thoughts on if the flanged mace was a good counter for a peasant to fight against an armored knight. Because if you think about, like, just look at the general concept of a flanged mace. Okay, so you have a head basically with blades coming out of it. And if you hit into an armor, like a helmet, for example, and that goes in there, they're not getting that helmet off without ripping their head apart. I'm sorry. That was specifically what that's designed for. So untrained people can just swing at a knight and hope to damage them to the point where they can't remove their armor or it takes them out of the fight. Because knights were like the tanks of the medieval battlefield, and even into the Renaissance where they were still wearing armor in some places. That was like the most scary thing on a battlefield was a knight. They had money, they had training. Many of them had been trained since they were young. But if you could outnumber them with enough people, because, you know, the knights were probably going to be mounted. So if you could outnumber them with enough people on the ground, and you could get some lucky hits in, you could take them down. That's just what you did. And this dude sitting here telling me otherwise just got me all messed up, man. It really bothers me, because I'm sure that I'm right. Now, it's not because I want to be right. It's because there's a rationale in my thought process. I'm using a thicker brush for this part to make it go faster. Because the sides are much bigger. Okay. Now for the roof up here, I'm going to use that same gray, but I am going to put some blue in it. Where's that blue I had? Oh, I lost it. Oh, damn it. I'm going to use that same tone of blue. Okay. And then I want to lighten all that up around there. So I'm going to get a real light gray this time. I'm going to keep that same blue out though. This real light gray is called country gray. I should be using a smaller brush to do this, but I'm not. Okay. I'm just going to drag it along my brickwork a little bit in some spots. There's a little bit of blue in that brush, and now I'm seeing the error of my ways, but it'll be alright. Okay. Then I need to lighten up my roof a little bit more. So I'm going to get some of that lighter gray again. some of that, like that blue I was using. Okay. Something like that. Now I want to do the straps in black. Can you guys see that? I don't know if I'm not in the frame there. Now, another thing that you should put in the comments, when I put these metal pieces on these doors, I call them straps. I know on tables and stuff, I think they're actually called banding. Maybe they're called banding on all this stuff and I just don't know. If you guys know what this is actually called, you know, you essentially bolt metal to shit. Tell me, because I don't know. I'm going to hit that with the air gun real quick. And then I'm going to get a metallic. Then I need a door knocker on there, or a handle of some sort. So I have some little metal rings. And my thought was that I was just going to, maybe I have to use some tweezers here. Get a little metal ring there, like that. And I was just going to put a tiny dab of super glue on that. And hope that that was enough to, you know, do what I need. I'm trying to soak some of that up real quick with a piece of cardboard. All right, cool. Something like that. And again, these are set up to where I can just kind of, I'll make them at different heights and different thicknesses, and just be able to kind of modularly put them together and create different kind of like condo style storefronts. So let's work on this and make it look a little better. So we know darn well that this is old and beat up, and there's going to be moss and crap. So let's get my favorite color of green, which is my second favorite color overall. This is called English Ivy Green. Let's get a chalk of that there. Chalk's not a real word, that's okay. I'm going to get some water. I'm going to thin some of this out. I'm going to start up in my corners with the real thin stuff. And anywhere where I got a color where I don't like it or some weird thing going on, I'm going to fill that up with that moss. And drag it around that area there. I want to make sure I get in between some stones. Maybe on some of these areas on top of stone. And I want to make sure I'm using some water so it's not real thick, and so that it does soak down into anything where it needs to soak down. I want to make this look kind of gunged up and inhabited by moss or fungus. These are just old buildings in a area where they don't get a lot of sunlight, maybe, because they're all jammed together and close to each other. A little bit of sun they have doesn't encourage any real plant growth besides, moss, I guess. And you're probably not going to see the sides of these buildings much. But in case this is on the end, or I'm using it on the side of the battle map or something, we'll just play a silly game where you get some on the sides too. That'll help tell a story anyways. It's all about telling the story, right? We're going to stick some of that really thin stuff in our broken bricks. There was a little bit of blue showing there I didn't like. We're going to come up on the roof here. I'm going to really thin this out for a minute. I'm going to deal with these kind of deeper cracks in the roof, because I think that's where you're going to see more of your kind of moss stuff building up, where dirt settles and it has a place to root in and grow. So trying to aim for some of those deeper spots with that really wet junk. Okay, keep it wet. And then I'm just going to kind of drag it out into some of these areas where I want it to be, where it's like growing more and extending. It's comfortable and happy where it is. Something like that. And I'm pretty pleased with that. Let me blow my nose. Okay. We need to air dry this a little bit. And let's put some flocking on here. To show some of the thicker moss that's accrued. Okay, And so to do that, I'm just going to get a little bit of clear glue and a disposable brush. Just like that. A little bit of clear glue. Then I'm going to pick areas that I think that's going to benefit. I'm going to do a rough, jagged pattern. You could do this over where you've already done some green, or you could do it in a whole new area. It doesn't really matter. It's all just going to create variation and some interest. But what I would recommend is that you only do one side at a time. That you do not try to do all your sides at once, because you're going to make a big mess. So what I'm going to do is one side at a time. So I'm starting with my front here. And I'm going to use this pretty vibrant stuff that I use all the time. And I have some new stuff here that I just need to get into a bin so I can actually access it and use it. But I don't want to use a whole bunch on the sides, because like I said, I'm not sure how much we're really going to even see that. Oops. Where'd I put my... Oh, damn you. Put it right in my water. Of course I did. That's not going to be what I wanted, but it'll work. I think somebody's outside creeping. I have a new neighbor, too. I don't know him. He seems alright. I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, though. I try to, anyways. I am noticing the older I get, the more irritated I get with new people. Like, I tell myself, oh, I'm going to be fair and give them a shot, and then, like, the next thing you know, I'm like, God, this person. Last but not least, let's get some action on this roof up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up in this corner and do kind of a big patch. Then I'm going to come over here and do kind of a bigger patch over here on the side. And let's hit some shit down here at the bottom. Okay. Cool, 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 cool. All right. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. And that, my friends, is how the first section is going to look. It's going to do what I need it to. It's going to look attractive. I'm going to be able to build a nice backstop kind of to set the scene for town fights. And that's what I set out to do, you know. That, as long as you do what you set out to do, you know, as long as you've implemented something to help tell the story, it doesn't have to be perfect. I promise you. Perfection is not a prerequisite of a good craft. It never will be. So, I'll let you guys go, and then I'll come back and paint this one, because you don't want to sit here with me all night just staring. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon, and all that happy crap that helps make the channel grow. I'll see you next time.